AJ Thompson with Black Ice Graphics out of Palmer, Alaska here. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to a program by Autodesk called Sketch Book Pro. This program is completely free to the end user. One of the things that you might want to keep in mind while using this program is it works best with a pressure-sensitive stylus that you might use with an iPad Pro or a Microsoft Surface Pro or a higher-end Wacom tablet. Let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you the user interface and how I use it to do digital concept drawings that I can then take to my customer and see how we want to move forward from there. Okay, so you can see from the start that it's set up pretty much like all the rest of the photo editing apps out there, or drawing apps. You've got your normal drop down manipulation windows up here. You got a toolbar here, and a layers type panel over here. And expand that out a little bit so we can add some more. And then you've got these little pucks, and I will go into detail on what all of these do as we go. First thing we'll start off with is your normal menus up here, and I like to adjust some of the preferences and stuff to start off. So we'll go Edit, Preference. You know, you get your normal General tab, your Undo, depending upon how powerful or how much RAM you have. I would put that as many as you can. It just gives you the option to Control Z or undo things that you didn't like back farther. The other one I chose is default save format is to a TIFF format, so it's a little bit more universal, where this is a Photoshop document, which is pretty much, well, semi-Photoshop proprietary. Not a real big deal, but like I said, I like the TIFF. It's definitely universal, can be opened on anything. This page up, next image, I never really used that. And the other one is I always have it add images or import images. Comes in as a new layer. Later on you'll see why as I start importing in references and other things to kind of speed up the process. You can come over into the brush. You can set these any way you so choose. I don't really mess with them, but they're pretty self-explanatory. The major one that I want to change or set up for you guys is this one in Canvas. You can put the scroll bars on the sides if you so choose. Since I'm working on a more of like a tablet where I'm going to draw directly on it and I don't have access to my keyboard or mouse as much, I click that off because it's not needed. You can use it if you want to. The big one though is this one right here, your width, height, and resolution. I like to make sure that mine is a very large canvas I'm working on. The larger your computer can handle, the better off you'll be. So if you need to shrink the image down, you don't lose resolution. You only lose resolution when you expand an image or blow it up. So the larger you can work with, the better off you will be. I've got mine set to pixels, 3000 by 3000. You can set that to anything you want. But I would recommend going as large as you can. Of course, there is too large. Don't get too ridiculous. The next one is resolution. If you're only planning on working on a digital format where it will only be seen digitally or on the web, 72 DPI or PPI is perfectly adequate. Most displays don't display images on the web and stuff more than that. You can go up a little bit for a little bit more crispness and clearness, but if you plan on doing anything in the physical world, printing it out or whatever, you want to set that to 300 or higher. If you have a nice large canvas, 300 is quite adequate, because as you shrink, that resolution goes up. So if I was to shrink this down after creating it to a 1500 by 1500, that is going to double this to 600 pixels per inch. Your resolution will go up. So if your computer hardware can handle that, get a nice large canvas size and pump that up. It'll help you if you're going for physical print type applications with your art. It's got system over here, associated files. These are just files that will open when you click them in this program. That's up to you. I don't really click anything because I always just use the file open command for me. and when I click on files, I don't want them to open here. I want them to open in Photoshop or some other program automatically. This one's kind of cool because it gives you a list of hotkeys if you use a lot of hotkeys. Again, I'm on a tablet with not a lot of access to my keyboard, so I don't generally use the hotkeys. I just use the user interface. The lagoon, what they're referring to, as you can see right here, is also down here. I don't use it too much. It's just kind of a shortcut area to get to some of your tools and stuff. It can be positioned anywhere you want. I guess we can go down here. If you click on this, that's how a window's open here. Click on that, you can position it in different areas on the board, or you can make it invisible, and then you can change what tools are quickly accessed in there. And then there's this one. Again, just a few tools and stuff. I don't use it too much, but go ahead and play around with that on your own time. And then if you ever mess something up or get something, lose something, can't find something, you can always reset your brush palette, your color palette, or preferences, and then adjust them again. So that's the main preferences there. Oop. You've got image manipulation, your image size, your canvas size, crop, rotate, all the basic ones that you have in just about any image editing software. Pretty self-explanatory there. Windows, again, same general thing. You can turn your windows on and off. Brush library. There it is. Took a second to load. I keep that one off generally because I can come over here and turn it on as I need to be. Color editor, again, you can come up here and edit. This one right here, Sketchbook Extras, will open a window, takes you to the web page for them, and you can get brushes and stuff like that. When you first get the program, I highly recommend just going in there and downloading all of the brushes. You won't use all of them, but play with them, mess around, try different things with the brushes. There is a huge selection of brushes, and one of them may do what you want or need to do without having to create it yourself. But that's the basics for these windows up here. We'll go ahead and move on to this. This is your basic brush toolbar. You can expand this out if you get more in the basic little area and stuff like that and add to them. But for the most part, this is where you're going to go to grab all the brushes you use on a consistent basis. Your other ones are located in this little icon here. And like I said, this is your basic set. This is always going to match whatever you have here. If you want to add a brush to here, just click and hold it and drag it in there. It will remove it from whatever brush library sub menu you have and put it into whatever one you drop it in, and vice versa. You can pull stuff out. And as I mentioned before, you have thousands of brushes in this thing. From texture brushes to pencils to felt tip markers to stamps and snowflakes, brush effects. Think outside the box. Don't think that this is a snowflake, so the only thing I can do with it is snowflakes. You can click on this and put something like that in and become your art however you see fit. Snow brushes, kind of cool little texture effects. Glitch, weird little, that could be really cool for like shading something or doing like a cross hatch to get a little bit of value or definition to your piece. There's all kinds of brushes in here that can do really cool things. I actually really like that little pencil. I might switch that over. Texture brushes, all of them. Take a minute, play with them, see what they can do. You get a whole fine art pencil set here that mimics your traditional style drawing pencils. As we mentioned before at the beginning, one of the tools you should probably have is a good stylus with pressure sensitivity, whether it's like a Wacom tablet or pressure sensitive Microsoft Surface or Apple iPad Pro. Both of those are going to have a good pressure sensitive pencil tip. You can double click on any brush and it will bring up the brush properties, or you can click here and bring up brush properties. What that allows you to do, you have your basic, which will just mess with the size and opacity, but you can also do the same thing with this puck, and I will demonstrate that a little bit later. But your advanced settings, that's where you can really change how a brush will react to your inputs from whatever tool you're using, whether it's your finger or the pressure sensitive pencil. If you do have the pressure sensitive pencil, you've got a size with heavy pressure, size with light pressure, and depending upon what tool you're using, that will be different. The main tool I use for rough sketching is just a basic pencil, and as you can see, no matter what pressure I set, it is the same, and opacity with heavier light is the same also. I'm not looking to shade or change, I'm just wanting to put a good solid line down so I can see what's going on and play with my image and explore. We'll get more into that when I'm actually drawing. Your flow is basically how fast the ink, for lack of a better term, comes out of the pen down onto the page. The lower that is, the less dark this will be, and a little bit more spaced if it's a textured type brush. You can manipulate the stamp spacing and all that. The closer it is, the tighter your grouping is going to be, the farther out, the more textured it's going to look. Roundness, if you got 100% round, it's going to put a perfect circle for every stamp. If you've got, like this one's 25, you get this little kind of textury feel for it. Rotation is how much they rotate when they do it. So if we were using this snowflake, for example, and I had a rotation of 25%, every stamp it's going to rotate probably at 25% before it puts the next copy of that as you're drawing along. Scaling percentage 100, that means it's going to keep this same scale. If you were to change that, it would put a little bit of variation in those. Nib point, how sharp that nib point is, that's going to kind of affect the edges. Having a 100% sharp is going to give you a crisper line, where a smaller one is going to kind of give you a softer, hazy outer edge to it. Let's see here, randomness, that you can change all of those characteristics, but I'll let you play with them as you see fit to set up brushes to your own likings. A lot of the factory presets will be quite adequate with minor tweaks to size and pressure sensitivity, but play with them on your own time. Come up with something really cool. Close out these windows. Up here you've got your selection tools, your bucket tools, kind of window open tools, more or less drawing aids as opposed to drawing tools. Of course, this brings up your zoom in or your move around or rotate the canvas puck. Your selection's got your normal rectangle, oval, lasso, polygon, magic selection tool, and if you select that, you'll notice this little thing becomes full color instead of grayed out, and you can adjust this. We'll grab this, and it selected that gray that I was on, and then a little bit darker because I had the tolerance set high. I'll go ahead and deselect, push that up to there, and it's going to select even more of that. If I bring it down to 15, it will look less. So the higher that number, the more freedom the magic tool has to select. The lower the number, the more precise the color selection is going to be. There goes a really good example over here. I selected this gray and it just kind of copied this outer edge of that thing over there. But if I come up to this and select out of there real quick and this deselect, it's going to give me a lot more items selected. I try and keep it down in the 10 to 15 range for most of the time and only adjust it as needed. As you can see, this is the deselect. Here you've got replace selection. So anytime you select something new, it will deselect whatever you had selected and reselect the new option. This one will add. So anything you selected will stay selected, and it will select the new stuff as well and add it. This is some remove. So this one will take away from whatever you have selected already until you can have nothing. This is the invert. So if we go new selection, select the thing, and then I hit the inverse, now everything I had selected before is not selected, and everything that I didn't have selected is selected. So I had selected the star or snowflake before. Now I have what's outside of that selection. So positive, negative, that makes a little bit more sense. Kind of a handy tool, especially when you're trying to select one area, delete everything out of it. You select the area you want to keep, inverse, and then delete or whatever. Deselect. Crop tool, pretty basic. Quick transform gives you a lasso if you wanted to select a certain area on the layer or that, and then it brings up your little puck to where you can zoom it in, and this is just your layer. You can pinch it up or squeeze it up and down, squeeze it left and right. Whatever you click, whatever movement you do after you click is going to be until you release and click again. This will move it around. Pretty basic and self-explanatory. The scale and distort, you can, on the distort, you can come grab these little things and kind of give it a weird look, perspective or distorted look to it. And then once you're good with it, you can hit OK or cancel, and it'll take you back to whatever you originally have. The other one is just a uniform scale and distort. Grab your corners and move them around, and it will keep the general square rectangle. Basic gradient fill bucket. Text tool, obviously you put text in, select your font, your size. Ruler tool, this one's kind of handy if you need to draw a straight line. I can't draw a straight line. I use tools. Here's your ruler. You can just do this. Whatever tool you have selected will literally just draw right along that line. You can move it with the little square one any way you want it. These ones allow you to rotate it, and then that will remove it so you don't accidentally putting another line wherever you go. Similar tool, it allows you to do circles and ovals. And you can put an oval, rotate it. Once you get your shape, you can scale your shape however you so fit. This one's kind of a cool tool. It's got these French curves in here, and there's a few different shapes that you can select. You can scale them just like all the rest of them, rotate like all the rest of them, mirror it to where it flips, and then you just draw the curve you want. A lot of car designers and building designers and architect type things will use these tools, but they're quite handy for all sorts of applications. Perspective gradients, or not perspective gradients, but perspective grids, I'm sorry about that, will give you different grids for drawing in perspective and all that. For my particular art, I don't use them that much, but they are a handy tool, and I can see somebody else really enjoying them. This one I use quite a bit. It's the symmetry tool. You can do, excuse me, you can do a vertical symmetry, horizontal symmetry, and anything you draw on one side of the line will be on the other side. Am I not drawing here? Oh, that pencil. I've got the settings messed up on that one. As you can see, it mimics it if I was to go this way with it. Now I've got all of them, and it's going in 4. I can select this one and bring up how many ever this number is. That's how many different quadrants. And anywhere you draw, it will draw the same thing in the other ones. And if you cross the lines, it does some really cool fractals or whatever. You could up that all the way up to 16, down to 2, whatever you so choose. The main one I use is the vertical. This little thing allows you to drag your symmetry line where it's going to break between the two, wherever you want, and then this will lock it in place so you don't accidentally move it while you're drawing. And then the eyeball hides the line, so that little marching ant line doesn't interfere with what you're trying to create. I'll go ahead and turn that back off. And go ahead and erase all the stuff on that. It's getting kind of crowded. So this tool is kind of handy too. Kind of steadies out and smooths out your thing. This right here is how many pixel distance you will start drawing away from your cursor. So basically it's a tail. If I start drawing here, and then you can see the little line behind it pulling, it makes it to where I can follow a line a little bit better. Smooths it out. The longer tail is just, that's 200, that's really far away. And then if we bring it down to 0, it's a little bit more jittery or accurate and get crisper angles. That can be a fun tool, especially if you're trying to trace a specific image or even something you've already drawn and you're wanting to mimic that exact spot. Predictive stroke, it's kind of fun. If you're wanting to draw a circle, you can go like that and it kind of shapes it. Depending upon what version of the app you're on, if you're on the full tablet version, when you do that with it, it will go and create a circle with you. This is the full-size PC version. It doesn't quite go to a circle because it has the circle tool right there, and I can make a circle. If you hold the shift key while doing that, it will lock it to a perfect circle, and then it just, whatever tool you have, draws around it. And then there's a square and the line and the polygon tool. This is your layers window, opens and closes that if it's in the way. This is your brush tool, opens and closes that. This is your color editor, allows you to bring up the little color selection window along with quite a few presets. And you can RGB sliders if you want to nudge your colors a little bit. I don't use that one too much because this up here gives me a similar thing and then a grayscale window there. The other nice function about these pucks is you can click and drag, and if you notice at the bottom of the screen down in this, let's get to an actual pencil tool here for you. Watch down in this area down here, it will be saturation and then luminescence. Now in black it just kind of grays it out and saturation kind of grays it out, but when you have colors, saturation is how bright and vibrant and true the color is, where luminescence is how, I don't want to say bright because that's how your color is described. If it's a true primary color blue, it's going to be considered bright, but how vivid it is. For your luminosity, it's going to be not as much there. Where with this puck, it's your size and your transparency or opacity. The Copic library brings up another colors palette that is kind of the Copic thing. You can go to Copic web pages and find out exactly the names for all of these and all that. If you hover over them, it kind of gives you a color. Well, Copic is a marker manufacturer, and these mimic all their colors. So if you're familiar with those, you can use that color library as well. Your layers palette is pretty basic. You can add layers, group layers, add an image, erase everything on your current layer, and then you've got the little hamburger thing that allows you to kind of do the same general thing. If you accidentally close that window, you can click there and bring it up, or there and bring it up. If I wanted to delete this, I can go in this little circle of tools, click on it, hold, and then delete group, add a layer, delete group, or duplicate group, delete group, rename it, ungroup, merge group, lock group, hide group. And that's, you can also hide it just with that little eyeball. I don't want it, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Now for layers, it's pretty much the same thing. Duplicate layer, add layer, delete layer, text, merge all layers, merge with the layer directly below it. If you're doing that, the merging process, the layers have to be visible. It will not merge with hidden layers. You can lock it if you're done editing it. You do not want to accidentally select it and then draw on it. You can lock it, or you can hide it again, just with that eyeball as well. Another cool thing is lock the transparency. If I was to take this bold pen here and select white as my color, close it down, make sure it's good and big. Okay, now I can draw. Well, let's just go ahead and clear everything on this layer first. That's why. Clear everything on that layer first. I'm trying to clear the wrong layer. Grab my pen. Why I can't see what I'm drawing on here right now because it's white on white. But now I can lock the transparency, and everything that is these little checkerboards cannot be drawn on that layer. So I will bring that back up. I will switch over to a more visible color, and as I draw, only where I put the white before is able to be manipulated and add color or whatever to. All of that background gray transparency is locked, and I cannot manipulate it in any way. And I'll show you a way that I like to use that particular thing later on when we're doing our actual sketch. Put that back up, we'll clear that. Now I've got a blank canvas. I can use my mouse wheel to scroll in and out to zoom. If I push the space bar, it will bring up the little move, rotate, zoom window as well. As I mentioned before, when I'm doing this, I don't use my mouse and keyboard that much. I am in complete tablet mode and drawing directly on here, so I do most of my manipulations with either the toolbar here, the brush panel here, and the layers menu. There are also gestures you can use, just like on regular things. On this app called Handy, that's full of 3D posable models that can give you just that, a good solid roadmap to begin your drawings. I can't stress this enough. Use your tools. People are always telling me I can't draw a straight line. Neither can I. I use a ruler. Yes, coming up with something completely organic and out of the head is always fun, but sometimes time just doesn't allow you to do that. So we'll go ahead and show you how I use this app to help speed up the process and get a concept art to the client faster. We'll go ahead and just come in here pretty quick and show you a little bit of basics on this program. You can grab just a basic stylized human skull that comes with it. Once I'm in here, I can manipulate and move this 3D model however I want for the idea I'm coming up with. If I ever get lost and can't get quite back to where I want, I can just click this or that to give me a new start off point, and then I can zoom in or change the field of view. I can manipulate the joints. The skull only has the one, but if you had a hand or something up there, you have multiple joints for you to manipulate. You can also work with the lighting. It comes with 3 separate light rings. In this screen, you're manipulating all 3 at the same time. Or you can go to the edit feature and then select individual light rigs and change the brightness and whatever color you have down here left to right. We'll change that, and you can set up a dynamic lighting situation to give you a better reference. I am not really worried about that right now. I'm more worried about just turning off shadows because I just want a reference layer on my drawing. So now that I've got basically what I want, I come back here and you can either save it or do a screen capture, and I prefer using the screen capture for what I'm working on because then I can come and exclude this kind of burlappy canvas background and then snap it and then save it, and I generally just have its auto-save name, and then I'll replace it unless I have something specific that I'm going to use multiple times. I may rename it, but as you can see from right here, there's another one that's the hand that I was working on. Then you just click save, replace it, and then you go back to your drawing app. There's a couple of ways you can get your image into the program once you've decided on it. You can go to File, Add Image, or you can come over here to the Layers panel and click the Add Image icon and locate your file, bring it in. Once you've got it brought in, you can now adjust it with this little widget that pops up. The center one gives you scale. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little so I can see the whole canvas. This one gives you adjustments left and right, up and down, make it shorter or fatter. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that and re-import it because I wanted the left and right pinch to be the same. But now I'll scale it. You can rotate it and move it around. I'm going to scale it back down a little because I want to leave a little bit of room around it to add other elements to the skull if I want. I've kind of got an idea of an evil clown in my mind, so later on I might want to add some hair or some other props to him, and I want to make sure that I have enough room around it for that. Once I get him positioned the way I want, I just hit the X button. Thing to keep in mind is when you bring it in, the max scale you can put it at is 400. So if you've brought a smaller image in off the web or something, you may have to scale it to 400 and then get the quick transform tool and do it again to get it big enough for you to actually work with. The max scaling size you can do at any one is 400, but you can continue to do it again and again and again. Keep in mind, each time you do that, you do lose resolution. So I've got him positioned where I want him. Now I'm going to take this layer that came in and I'm going to bring it down to just above my background. And I'm going to grab this slider or grab it here, either one, and I'm going to bring that opacity level down to where he's just kind of a gray shaded area. I'm not needing to do a bunch of details or see a bunch of details on this because I'm just wanting him to be a rough template. For this particular drawing, I'm going to keep it pretty close to this skull, I'm going to do a little bit of modifications, make him a little bit more evil. But for the processes I'm using, I'm just going to keep them real simple. At the end of the video, I'll show you a couple more examples where I've done the same process and kind of pushed it a little bit more and changed him up a lot more, or added other features in. But this guy I'm just going to keep pretty close to the same, a little bit of modification to show you what you can do with it. Bring his transparency down. Another important thing is lock the layer so you don't accidentally draw on this one. It's really frustrating when you go to get rid of the references and stuff. You delete the layer and half your drawing went away because you drew on this. You always want to draw on your own layer. You can rename them if you want. At this point I don't need to rename it because this is just a rough draft. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Symmetry tool. Left to right, looks pretty lined up now. Looks good. I'm going to lock it so I can't accidentally move it. You can hide it if you want. The line doesn't really bother me. And then for this one, I'm going to grab a tool over here that the size and opacity pressure do not change with pressure. The reason why I'm doing that on this one is I'm just in the exploring phase. I just want a nice dark line. I am going to adjust my size somewhere between 5 and 10 again, so I get that nice easily visible line. Oh, excuse me. So as I'm exploring and getting a feel for this drawing, I can see where I'm going. Like I said, we're just going to go ahead and jump in. I'm going to do all of my, turn symmetry off, I'm going to do all of my drawing on the left side. Symmetry will copy it to the right. I don't want to bounce back and forth between them. Whatever side you start on, keep on that side. That way you get true symmetry. Turn that symmetry back on, get rid of those. And for the top of the head, I'm pretty much just going to keep it the same. This cheekbone and eyes, those I'm going to change up a little bit. I know that I want to give him a little bit more evil eyes, and a deeper brow ridge. A little bit more sinister. I kind of got an idea of an evil clown in the head. So, not working. I am going to bring this around and chisel this out a little bit more in there. Nose. Just kind of exploring. You can't really see it since I've got that shaded out, but keep in mind that this side of the jaw, if you're looking at it on the side, it looks more like that. So that's what you're kind of seeing as the highlight of this, and then that line comes down. I know I want this jaw to be a little bit more angular and aggressive looking. A little much, but we'll see. Can always change it later. Not super worried about this gum line right now, just kind of roughing it in, and then the teeth, just block them in. Probably going to keep the lower teeth pretty close to this guy. But these up here, I know I'm going to sharpen up a little. So, nothing super set. I'm just getting a feel. Now I can hide that. And I'm liking him a lot. He's got a nice little flow to him. I'm probably going to adjust the jawbone in just a little on this next pass. Just getting a feel. Draw that in. But that gave me a pretty good roadmap of where I want my skull to be, as opposed to just this plain basic guy. The handy skull that we brought in, he already kind of has a little bit of an evil look to him. And one of the reasons why is angular pointed shapes tend to lead themselves to more aggressive, and he is kind of a triangle by himself. The other skull that you get from Handy's a more realistic, and it's going to be a little bit more squat, a little less evil looking. I'll use them both, use anything. I'll find the other images from the web. There's a million different ways you can do this. The little drawing dummies that you can purchase or whatever, you can get those, snap a picture of it, put it behind it, and use it. Experiment and play. Just try not to flat out trace somebody else's art unless you're doing it for practice and to kind of get a feel for their style. All of us artists are influenced by other artists, and we try and get some of their techniques and styles into our own. If you do just flat copy somebody's stuff and you post it up on the web or whatever, throw a shout out to the original artist and say, hey, original art by da-da-da-da, copy this for practice, whatever. But always try and get your own art. If the client is wanting you to just copy somebody else's art outright, try and get them away from that. But sometimes they want what they want, and you're just going to have to do it. One of the reasons for doing this concept sketching is to try and get them away from that. So you could put their art as the background and then twist it and modify it and put your own feel into it. A lot of the times the customer will be happier because they end up with a one-of-a-kind piece of art anyway. But you got to do what you got to do if you're a commercial artist. But yeah, so now this layer just becomes my template layer. I can dim it down, come in here. For this layer, I am going to go ahead and grab a pencil that has pressure sensitivity to it. If you don't have that option, it's not the end of the world. You can do it with regular. I just like this because now I can give a little bit more character to this guy. I'm going to go ahead and turn the symmetry off now. I've got that rough in. I'm going to zoom in, still trying to keep the whole skull in the image, maybe almost out a little bit. Not touching at the exact same time for my gestures. There we go. Okay. So, still, size is going to be somewhere in the 5 to 10 range. That gives me, I can push down and get a pretty good dark line for these outlined areas. And then when I want the inner areas, I can lighten it up. I'm actually going to turn the transparency on that layer way down just so I can barely see him. Just enough so you can really see my lines. Don't feel you have to trace your original drawing over exactly. You're still exploring. This is still concept sketch no matter what layer you're on. But if you've got a good feel for what you got or like, keep close to it. Just a little bit better so I can see it a little more. that one side, so I just erased it. So I'm liking what I went with on that side, so I will just trace that side. Turn the symmetry off. Now I've got more of a symmetrical nose. I can modify it a little here and there. For the eyes, I am not wanting to be completely blocked out black. I want there to be kind of a undead glazed over eye with a kind of a serpent or elongated pupil in there. So just kind of rough that in right now. Now I'm going to bring that layer back. Unlock it, bring its opacity up just a little so I can see that gum line a little more. And then I'm going to put that gum line in a little bit more detailed this time. And like I said, I'm not wanting to change this guy up too much. Just kind of keep him pretty simple for the demo here. Now I will make his teeth, like I said, a little sharper, but the actual gum line itself can remain almost the same. Actually, we can just keep working that a little bit. Put the symmetry back on, because I'm noticing this guy is not exactly symmetrical. So if I trace out the teeth perfectly, it won't be exactly symmetrical. And then up here, kind of modify the teeth a little, just a little sharper on these guys, and then these guys are going to get a lot more sharpness to them. Well, these guys back here, they're just kind of fading into the background, so I'm not super worried about them. By having the teeth overlap like that, it makes the jaw look more round as opposed to flat. And this piece right here, you can see by the shading and stuff that it recedes back here. Turn that symmetry back off. Now, you can also see the shading and all that on that skull, that this area, it kind of concaves in this area and then convexes where the root of the tooth would be. I'm going to kind of accentuate that just a little bit, enhance it, exaggerate it. I mentioned earlier the jaw. I'm going to bring it in just a hair. Still want the same general shape of the jaw that I drew. I just want it to be narrower. the background layer. Keep a little bit more. Okay. Put some little character lines in, and what these do is add a flow for the bone plate or whatever you're working on. You can go across every once in a while too, to just kind of give it that rounded look. What you're trying to go for is a shape of how the bone is flowing. Like this bone kind of comes around like so. So just some little marks. Give it some character. Darken these lines along the upper eye, along here to make them look a little sunk in. So I mentioned earlier that I've kind of got a clown motif in my mind for this. I'm going to give him a little bit of clown makeup also. But instead of making it look like actual makeup, I'm going to turn my symmetry on for this point, and I'm going to make cuts in the bone. Above and below. There, kind of like the diamond makeup that clowns sometimes wear. Change my size down a little bit and give this bone a little bit of thickness to it. And then fill in this side because it's just a dark, empty, brainless, undead thing. So that's going to be pretty black. And in this area I'll just do a small little cross hatching on. Same with down here. And turn off that symmetry and kind of thin that up a little bit. Okay. Now I'm really liking that. That looks pretty cool to me. Keep putting your marks and striations. For the nasal area, I want it to recede back, so I'm going to use a cross-hatching style shading. But I keep pretty close, a little bit of pressure on the spots that I want to be darker, a little lighter, a little farther spacing apart for the spots I want to be lighter. But since I want this to be pretty dark, I'm going to change the angle and do that again. Each time I change the angle, it makes it a little darker. I want that nasal bone to come up in there a little bit farther. I'll grab my pencil again. I'll grab my pencil again. There we go. And kind of darken the one side and leave the other side a little less. For the light source on this guy, I'm not really super defining one. It's just kind of your traditional top down, maybe a little off to the side light source. actually going to move that nose a little. To do this, I just go grab the transform tool, the lasso tool, circle the area, trace around the area that I want to move, and then it brings up this little widget, and I can move it, resize it, reshape it, and I just moved him down just a little. Since I put these little parts of the cheekbone going around behind, it kind of made him lean forward a little bit, in my opinion. So now I needed to give a little bit more surface to the top of the nose, because it protrudes out away from the face. Okay. Just keep working, adding little character lines and detail lines as you go. I'm not liking how this jawline over here is falling, so I'm going to grab this and come down like that a little bit more, and kind of do something similar over here. Same thing I did with the nose to the jaw, just kind of moving it just a little bit up. Close that. Yeah, I'm liking that a lot better. Character marks up on the top. And I've got a pretty good solid outline, but he's not very three-dimensional. Doesn't have much depth to him. So I'm going to come in and reduce my tip size a little bit, add a little bit more character in down here. I'm going to start using crosshatch technique. Now if you're not super comfortable with the crosshatch technique, you can shade other ways as well. I tend to like the crosshatch, that way I'm not switching back and forth between brushes when I see a spot that I want some detail. But some people will come in and grab a softer brush like this airbrush tool and shade it. I might do that a little bit just to show you guys once I'm done with the cross hatching. But cross hatching is basically just like the name implies. Take a series of straight lines, and then to add darkness to it, you pick another direction, generally 45 or 90 degrees from it. And you do another set of lines. And you can keep doing that until it's completely blacked out in some areas and less so in others. And it helps add a little bit of depth to your image. So I'm not wanting a lot, just enough to where people will understand the feel of the drawing. You can also rotate your canvas to make some of these easier if you need to. I do that sometimes. Just roughing them in right now. You could add the suture. You could add those suture cracks in if you wanted to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to kind of give a little bit of texture, feel. Some character marks to the teeth. You can add shading to the teeth if you want. Remember, on a two-dimensional image, the darker something is, the more it's going to recede to the background, where the lighter it is, the more it is going to appear to be in the foreground. Use that trick of the brain to help you add form to your images. I don't want to lose that line, so I'm going to really kind of punch it out a little bit. Add a little bit more darkness to the underside of those eyes. But we now have not liking that. I'm going to shave that size down a little bit. Okay. Still not liking that. By giving these somewhat of a rounded appearance to them, it makes that bone look like it's curving. And he's quite sinister. Come in, darken a couple of these lines in a little bit. Connect if you want to. line weights, thick line to a thin line type thing. Can add dimension as well. I can put it here, there. More darkness in there. More darkness in there. Dang it. There we go. Okay, so I've got a pretty good concept going here. I erase a little bit of this, narrow that down just a little. There we go. I still want that to be a little bit thinner. There we go. Shave just a little bit of that off. Okay, I'm liking the feel for him. Pretty evil and sinister. Looks a little funky, like he's not focused. So I'm gonna move this one over just a little. And same with this guy. There, now he looks like he's focusing on you a little bit more. It's the beauty of digital concept sketches. I could do the same thing on pencil and paper, but that would have been another piece of paper, trace over the whole thing that I like, or erase. Or this gives me the ability to just kind of maneuver things around a little. Helps to speed me up. And in the concept area, that's kind of what you're going for. You're not wanting to take days to get back to a client with concept. You want to be able to do at least one good concept for them in a day's period, easily. This took us about half hour maybe. You want to try and keep them down to max 2 hours. Keep practicing and doing them. The more you do, the better they will, and the faster they will come. I'm going to go ahead and delete that line because I don't need that anymore. Now, since I have all this area out here that I left, I can come in and add elements for different variations of it by adding a layer. And let's give him some kind of flaming bozo hair. This side and do something similar on that. Maybe a little bit of mohawk going too. Almost didn't leave myself enough room at the top. I could move the whole thing down, merging all the layers and all that, but gives me a feel. Another idea would be, let's go ahead and turn off the flames, and let's give a kind of a gestures cap to him. A couple down points in there, outlined, and kind of. I am literally just roughing these in, kind of experimenting with the shapes, kind of like I did on the first one. If I was wanting to do this exact thing, I would do this quick sketch thing and then do a little bit more detailed pass. Okay, now this is kind of messy in here because I've got an overdrawn area and stuff like that, which is no problem in the digital world. I make a copy of my original so I don't lose it, hide it, grab my eraser, and anything that would be behind that little tassel of the hat, I just erase out of the copy. Kind of erase this line too. I got a little bit better feel of what I'm doing. This would not be here. That wouldn't be there. Okay. Back in here. Add a little bit more feel to this. And this one. Okay. Obviously that's just roughed in, but you get the idea of where I'm going with the jester skull or jester's cap. And then when I get to the client, I can just hide layers as needed, make them visible, and show him a few different ideas relatively quickly with the same sketch. And we can figure out exactly how we want to move forward. Once I get to the point of this, generally I will go in, cancel, unlock that, and delete it. I no longer need it. I can keep it in my archives for something else. But we have a pretty good concept sketch with a couple of variances that we can bring to our clients. Mentioned earlier, you could do some airbrush or softer types shading as well if you're more comfortable with that. That's as simple as just turning to a softer style brush. I am an airbrush artist by trade, so I kind of like this look too. I'm just kind of quickly doing this to give you an idea. Change the size of it. Oop. Change the size of it and the opacity of it. And this one is pressure sensitive as well. I can draw light or dark. And you could add your shading in that way as well. So I recommend doing that one on its own layer by itself. But there you go. Concept sketch in less than an hour that I feel comfortable taking to the client, and we can decide how we want to move forward from there. Here are a few more examples I did using the same procedures I illustrated in this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.